Hi, everyone, and welcome to Real Siblings. It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast that just ain't typical. I'm Donna, and he's Eric, going over there in that window. And we are the Real Siblings. We are both professional realtors with Keller Williams. And for your reference, he's a Gen X, and I am a boomer, a young boomer. This podcast blends lifestyle together with real estate as we work to communicate, educate, connect, and entertain our listeners. While the topics vary and our conversations go in many directions, we work to provide the listeners with insights into the industry, better equipping them for their next real estate transaction. And friends, I was telling Eric that he typed this intro a really long time ago. I had written on it 32nd episode, and we are coming up on this is episode 67. I will be 67 in June when my baby brother is barely hitting the 60s.
6-0.
60. And we are going to talk about the younger part of the boomer generation, which I fall into. And Eric, just when we were getting started, you said that even though you're a Gen X, you kind of
I being the tail end and the first year of what they consider to be Gen X. So I'm an old Gen X.
I'm a young boomer, you're an old
And
Gen.
you're a young boomer. But honestly, because of our father, I feel much more boomer because the way he liked old movies, the way he liked old music, new music being crap at the time.
Jesus Christ, superstar.
It just, that's the way I was raised. That's the way we were raised. It was not, we didn't listen to none of that wild rock music. We,
No, we sang
it was a bit
really,
like riding in the car and asking him to put on the Canadian radio station, Windsor, so we
yeah.
could listen to some real music on the AM radio dial.
That's funny that you say that, thinking about that, because I often talk about the music that we listen to in the car with our kids and the mix between Gil and I and Bible school and Broadway or whatever. And with Dad, we were singing some of those kind of old songs that we sang on the farm and stuff like that, but we definitely lived what I would say was a more of a boomer life, being raised in a small town by the parents that we were raised by.
And I think that even goes to Dad was not a boomer. He
No,
was being born in 34, but he did not buy into the wild 1950s.
that's true.
He thought, I mean, aside from putting a lot of product in his hair, long before we called it product, but putting a lot of product in his hair to maintain,
Yeah.
that was really it. He didn't understand the cars. He didn't understand the motorcycles. He didn't understand the leather jackets. He didn't like Elvis, didn't like any of that stuff. Do you remember the record that I found, the 78 record that I found that I used for Father's Day 2 years ago?
No. Oh, you mean the one
No,
where he recorded
that he recorded when he was in
in
college.
college? Yeah.
And the whole thing is about going to pick up your girl and serenading your lady and the minstrels and da 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 da.
Yeah.
And he talks about, she shows up at the window with enough war paint on.
Oh,
He
that's
just wasn't. That just not him, not his thing, and that cascaded to us.
well, and I think Dan too, when you just say that, because I had pictures taken for professional stuff with fake eyelashes and all that. And he was like, it's fine, but you look so made up. And I was like, yeah, yeah. So before we got going with this, we talked about what makes a generation, but I want to tell our listeners kind of what spurred this topic.
Yes.
I belong to BNI, which is Business Networking International, and there is a group of realtors that meet monthly, and we have a topic. And this month, one of the women presented the topic of working with the younger boomers, the younger baby boomers. So it's a huge range, right? And then what we did is we had conversations in breakout rooms because it's Zoom, clearly, because we're nationally. And in that, in my room, there was a Vegas person and there was like a South Carolina person, and I'm trying to think where I had 4 in that room. And what was this specific market like in our area? And so I mentioned it to you today and said, what if we talk about that? What does that mean where we live? So have you had time to think about that since our conversation this
I
morning?
did. And one of the things that I looked up is that neither of our states, Arizona or Texas, has the highest population of boomers. And neither one of our states has the highest percentage of boomers. However, we are both of our states are top 5 for boomer migration.
Ah, coming and going.
The ones that are saying, I'm done with the cold.
Yeah.
I'm done with shoveling snow.
Yeah.
I'm done with scraping ice off my windshield. I'm done.
So what are those states? Is it Florida, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, California?
Let me.
I'd be super interested.
Actually, one of them, the Carolinas are both in there.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me because I know a lot of people move into the Carolinas. Yep.
Florida, South Carolina, Arizona, Texas, and North Carolina. And Florida just blows the rest of us away.
Well,
I mean, it was almost 83,000 boomers that moved permanently in 2022.
And interestingly, this morning, usually you are the numbers guy, and I randomly opened something this morning that talked about income and the disparity. Florida is one of the largest, with certain areas being the multi-millionaire billionaires, and also some of the poorest. So that was interesting too. I think we ranked in the top 25, we were like 17. So it was super interesting to see where we are. And we know that here because of the people that buy their second or third home here, right? That are coming from those other places.
Right.
And I remember being in Ohio, I think I told you this, down in Fort Myers area, Cape Coral, and had dinner with 5 people from Fremont and Lindsay, who were all in their homes down there.
Nobody in their Florida homes.
Yeah.
I do. I remember that picture.
Yeah.
So in the list that you went over with BNI,
yeah.
What was the number one? You said that she had like a list of 10.
So it was an interesting list of people that it would be good for us as realtors to have in our wheelhouse to help advise young boomers. Okay. Now, this might also mean our children, and you and I will get into that a little bit related to your mother-in-law, right? But here's some of the categories. So you're gonna, you're either a 60-year-old helping out with an 85-year-old home. You might need a junk removal person. You might need an estate sale person. You might just need an organizer who you can refer, to come in and help. Mom or dad, who could be the upper echelon of the boomer population,
right?
Who need to organize. Now, I'm not saying that our generation and the younger ones are all organized. So we could all use it when I look at my junk drawers and how many there are now of my junk drawers, right?
So to that end, do you have that list? Could you say, yes, I have that person? Because I honestly do have a couple of people who are estate sales companies.
Yes. And I can give names out, but I don't have a really close relationship with them. So what it made me think about is, should I spend more time learning more about the details of these people? So home health, which because of Jeannie haven't done hospice, she might know that. Estate attorneys, probate attorneys. Listen to this, safe crackers. Who do you know that knows how to open safes that people have had in their closets for 20 or 30, 40 years?
And never gave anybody the combination or sent.
Don't know how to get in the safe.
That one's interesting. Would not have thought of safe crackers. I'm thinking the other side of it is you're saying that list, but when you've got people migrating
Right,
from someplace, coming to and permanently making a change, if
yep,
they don't have friends down here,
right,
you are the resource.
right.
And they need new doctors. And most of them, young baby boomers, you're
Yep.
not just talking a primary care physician.
No, that's true.
You have to have that, but within Medicare,
They're orthopedic
who
surgeons.
takes their orthopedics, their neurologists that pick the specialty
Yep, yep.
that you need.
They brought up audiologists, which I didn't think about. And considering Gil had a hearing aid before he passed, and I feel like I have super good hearing, like the other extreme, I don't think about it. But I I just have to share this story. I had somebody dropping off a delivery of books the other day from FedEx, and he was going to leave them outside the gate. I was like, no, 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 don't leave. I want you to lift them into the garage. So I opened the door, and he kept going like this. I finally said, is that a hearing aid? He goes, yeah. He said, I can't hear you. And then we had a whole conversation about if he turned his head this way, he couldn't hear me, but if he turned his head this way, he could. And he was young. He was not an old guy, but he said, I could have just left those books there and told you I didn't hear you. So audiologists, pastors, people ask about churches, or what if they moved and all of a sudden, you're 55 or 60, you've retired at 57. You downsize, you come to where it's warm so you can ride your bike, do all those things, and suddenly something happens in your life totally unplanned. Now who do we need, right? Anyway, it was fascinating. Oh, the one other thing, I loved this as a closing gift. If you have a technology person that as a closing gift, when somebody moves in, they could help them with all their apps that they need for new doctors. They could help them set up their computers. They could get them the best routers, cameras if they want them, security if they want them. What a good closing gift that would be, Eric.
So are you bringing in a middle schooler?
We have this great 13-year-old who could maybe, but you know that I kind of give the same closing gift to everybody, but sometimes now it's their second or third move, and I'm not going to give them the same gift. So I was like, I love that idea. For who would that be? It's not the same person that's going to do your social media. It's not the same person that does creates your ads.
No, but you would have to have somebody who's willing to come on site.
Yes.
So, wow, be interesting. Does that person exist?
I don't know. Or are we creating a new job for someone?
The technology app assistance for. Okay, so you alluded to this with my mother-in-law being in the house.
Yes.
And there's been a lot going on in our nation's capital over the last few months. One of the things that has gone on is change in identification. In proof of identification, you are who you say you are, or you is who you say you is. Elsie needs a new ID. Her ID from Florida, where she has not lived for 20 years, was the ID she was still carrying.
Wow.
It does not have an expiration date on it. She does not have a passport. Now we have to have this real ID. Even that system requires to schedule an appointment. I had to have a computer to set up an appointment to go to Department of Public Safety,
Yep.
to talk to them about an ID. She does not have a computer. She does not use a smartphone.
Wow.
In order to create the appointment, I used her phone number as the home phone number. I put in my phone number since I was driving her to the appointment as her mobile number. So in case they called, I could pick it up. And I put Jeannie's email in so that if there was any kind of subsequent follow up, she was going to see it.
Wow.
That was all just to schedule the appointment. And once you scheduled the appointment, it gave you a prompt at the bottom of it to confirm your appointment. It's like, do you want to print? Would you like to print? And initially I walked off and I'm going, just in case, I'm going to print this thing out. When you get there, there is a kiosk that you need to scan the barcode that's on the confirmation that I chose to print out, that it didn't say, you will need a copy of this. It was, do you want to print it? And I just, for whatever reason, decided to do that. Now, she does not have an ID yet because the new requirements will not allow you to take a hospital version of your birth certificate.
You have to
It
have
has to be the official certified one.
Yep.
So guess who's following up with the state of Maine? For her marriage license too.
Wow.
Because she kept Papa's name when they divorced. She never changed her name back.
Wow.
If her birth certificate does not match, now we need a copy of the marriage license. She's been divorced for over 40 years. And then both of those have to go in before we can get her new ID so that maybe she can get on an airplane and fly again.
Does she still have a photo ID from Florida from 20 years ago?
Yes, she walked in asking if she could use that picture because she thought it was so much better.
He's something else. Gotta say that. Gotta say that. Gotta give that
A mother-in-law, a character.
Yeah, a character.
Just outside the door.
Yeah. So all of this is to say we've got, and so you're 60, she's 84, did you say?
She will be 85 in August.
So she'll be 85. So that's a generation, right? And the difference, I think this all the time when I have people who say, I'm not going to sign electronically. And now the fear that comes with wire fraud, the fear, I just had a young couple. They were like, nope, we're doing a cashier's check. They live in town. They're, they weren't going to wire anything to anybody. And they're Caleb's age,
We had to replace both a credit card and a debit card since the first of the year because fraudulent charges on both. Now, the credit card is covered. The one that showed on the debit card was a big concern. And reaching out to your bank to shut those things down, we know because of our experience that those spiders on the web are crawling. As soon as you start a communication with somebody, and it even reads your email that says, hey, the houses you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody's going, ooh, they're getting ready to buy a house. Let's send through.
Yeah.
And there's some sort of fraud document. But taking this back to the boomers, relocators, the young boomers, the older boomers. Now, mom is not a boomer. She's 1940 with her age. So, and boomers didn't officially start until 45. So she's part of the greatest generation, as they refer to it.
Right.
Although she was 5 years old when the boomers started. She doesn't remember anything of the greatest generation kind of stuff. She was young enough that didn't mean anything to her.
Yeah.
She can't go back like dad and mom could and talk about the rationing stamps and the collections and the metal drives and the rubber drives and things like that to keep our soldiers moving. So some of those generational things, even though that's technically who she is, she feels more baby boomer because by the 1950s, she's running off to get married.
Interesting. Huh.
So even though it's small town, Maine, highest concentration of baby boomers, not everybody, there's so much of it that is, we've used this term before, lifestyle.
Yeah,
Just like I expressed, I don't feel Gen X.
yeah. The other thing that I think you and I talked about briefly was what are the decisions that are being made by those who can't afford it, who are younger baby boomers? Some are retiring quite young. Some are taking Social Security young because they're not sure it's going to be there in 5 years or 10 years or whatever that looks like.
Right.
Some are rent. I have friends who sold their house in Jackson Hole. They're just traveling the world. That's what they're doing. They haven't been back to the States for 2 years now. And just others in their RVs are doing that, just choosing to be on the road. People are living on cruise ships that are around the world.
Well, when you think of nursing homes or cruise ships, where there's any number of articles over the past, I don't know, 15, 20 years, where it's like, why go to a nursing home when I can live on a cruise ship, run my own schedule, meet new people every week or every weekend, get gourmet food as opposed to a small portion, low sodium. You can't eat this, you can't eat that. We're waking you up at 6 a.m. because breakfast is from 7 to 7:15.
Yeah.
And if you don't get your cup of Maxwell House or Folgers or whatever it is,
then
you're not getting your coffee.
Done for the day. Yeah. And so when I think about that, so my clients from Quebec are, we put their condo on the market and they bought it 15 years ago. And they were both clearly still working and they were coming and going. And now they are both retired and they both retired young. And they're gonna just travel the world more. So they're not gonna just come to Tucson. And they're younger than me, both of them. So it's a little sad. I had two Canadian clients, one from Quebec, one from the Calgary area in this, like back in 2008, 9, somewhere along in there. And they're making the decision to just go as much as they can, while they have their health. And what does that look like? And the baby boomer population, there were so many. I think our parents were extraordinary from the fact that mom had one brother and dad had one brother and one sister instead of farm families had 5, 6, 7, 10 kids.
Absolutely. You look at dad's dad, our grandfather's family.
Yeah. What, 9 of them? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now, and I can go back to Lindsay and I'm just going to guess on this because I can't verify any of it, but we know there's a few more homes than there were up and down State Route 590. There's a few more, but not a lot more. The population is a little bit less. So even though there's a few more homes, there's not families with 9 kids in town. There's not, so the same house that might have had 4 kids or 5 kids, or if they were migrant workers when they came, maybe 8 or 9 kids, have 2. Which means that the baby boomers, when we age up more, the generation coming behind us, and there's not as many. And so all these homes, all these things that we're building for second homes, will there be as many people to live in the second homes?
I don't know. Officially now, millennials, and I don't know how I fit in because they jumped straight from boomers to millennials. Apparently Gen X, we didn't reproduce enough. So we weren't part of the consideration. But millennials have surpassed the population of baby boomers for the first time, I think, in 2023.
Really?
And because the centurions, even though that's the largest growing segment of our population, that's still a population that in general is passing away and leaving this earth while the millennials are still there.
Well, that's interesting.
So you've hit that arc to where there were so many. I mean, the whole reason for baby boomer is, guess what? There were a lot of GIs that were celebrating surviving the war.
Yeah.
And baby after baby after baby after baby.
Yeah.
And millennials weren't doing that.
Yeah.
But I think millennials are driven from Gen X. So for whatever reason, Gen X still had kids, but now it's the millennial population that is not.
I want to go back to the younger baby boomers and these second homeowners here because, and then I want to ask you about your area. So here, when Marie-Josée and Francois first bought from Quebec, predominantly Quebecois would go south over there. They had friends that thought they were nuts to come to Tucson, but he was a bike rider. He was a cyclist. And so we have tons of riding here, tons of hiking in the winter months and the outdoor activities here without the humidity and stuff that happens in Florida, right? So eventually all his Quebec friends started coming and staying in their condo and they became their renters. that were also, and one of the other activities he did is he would get ready for cross country skiing and on skis on our back roads that were on wheels. So think skateboard, but one on each foot. And he talk about a workout. I saw some of those videos, but we still had enough roads that had a little up and down with very little traffic, out kind of rural. And that's what brought them here instead of to the Carolinas or to Florida. They wanted that. And then I think also it's a really artsy place here, and we have different kinds of allergies. So you and I have talked, you get allergies no matter where you live. So I don't think it matters, but
That's correct.
Yeah, but there are, I had hay fever back in Ohio living near the grain elevator, and I'm not allergic to things out here. So sometimes, and yet we have valley fever, we have mold spores, so different things, but sometimes people leave for the cold. Sometimes they leave for the allergies. Sometimes they just want sunshine. They might have seasonal affective disorder, where they just need sun.
Well, and you mentioned that some of the kids have moved. So now parents are moving back closer. The kids moved away, but now they're moving closer, not because they want to be closer to the kids, but they want to be closer to their grandkids.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, well, we can do this instead of daycare. So there's some of those decisions. You and I, pre-recording, had the discussion. My decision to be where we're at and make the decision as quick as we did, following the fact of when Jeannie and I got married in July of 2001, and we were under contract for this remote piece of land by October of 2001. And that was driven by the fact that she's a hospice nurse, or was at the time, and she did it for another 15 years. And she had already seen so many of those people who said, we're just going to go out here and we're going to build our dream house. We're going to go do this. And then for whatever reason, one of the two of them doesn't get to live to see the dream. Mm-hmm. And it's reality of our world, right?
Right.
We take a first breath, we take a last breath. We don't know what that time is, but if you go, oh, we're just going to wait. Oh, we're just going to wait. The timing's not right. We have a cousin's cousin who said that for a long time, right?
Yeah.
That no, but just need a little more, And it's like, you're losing a lot of time. And part of that too, again, let's take this to lifestyle. We have lost 2 of our 6 fur babies in the past year. We recently were concerned that our black guy, Gizmo, was going to be leaving. In the past month, we spent over $1,000 on vet bills. Cannot imagine, even though we're going, that's it, we're done. When these are gone, and then we look at it going, cannot imagine not having another little life in the house with us. So that automatically impacts our ability to get up and go. We have the house sitter.
Yeah. Every time I think about, I don't dislike pets, but every time I think about my lifestyle, I haven't made the decision that I would sacrifice or financially. I know what you guys pay to afford. Did you see that I did our pet memorial the other day? Did you notice that online?
No.
We have a pet memorial once a year from our animal ministry. And people send in their pictures with their pets and yeah, talk about a little segue here, but and horses and cats and dogs, and I lead the singing, and I always think I'm here and I don't have a pet, and I get such kind compliments afterwards for coming and leading. All creatures of our God and King, So, yeah. Anyway,
Are you going to are you going to work to find those resources to better help
I am.
your generation out?
I am. And I'm gonna talk to the lender because where would he fit into this? And yeah, I'm gonna start using my time in BNI to start asking for people who know some of these categories.
Okay, so this is one. Did this come up? Someone who's an expert at reverse mortgages?
Yes, I have that. And there is someone in another chapter, but the guy in my chapter also does it. So I wanna see if we can tag team and have me say something and him say something the same week to get people thinking about it, because I've had two people in my subdivision pass away in the last year. They both had reverse mortgages. Yeah. And one of them for like 14 years.
Yeah, that's the way Elsie supported herself originally in Florida. She bought this condo, and when she retired, before she hit the road back up to Maine and then Maine down to here,
Yeah.
she used a reverse mortgage to supplement her Social Security.
Yeah.
Which was absolutely necessary because she would not have been able to live in Florida without the reverse mortgage.
I'm sure. No
matter how frugal you live.
Yeah. Yeah, there's still a limit.
I mean, eggs cost $750 a dozen. At least that's what Steve Rod put on his post about his eggs.
I saw that. I was laughing.
I know what I've got.
He clearly forgot the decimal point, but it was such a funny post. That's funny. I just took pictures. I got 18 eggs again today from someone at my office, and she goes, one of them's a duck egg. And she goes, use that if you're gonna, I'm like, she goes, they're fattier. And I'm like,
That's right, they're extra rich.
Do I need fattier eggs? I don't know.
It's going to make a better creme brulee, right? Or something.
All right, Eric, why don't you take us out?
All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us today as we talked boomers, aging, those things that we may need as we approach our more senior years. Now, we know we have a young listening audience, and this doesn't mean anything to them. But we are outside of the norm. We exceed the average age of a real estate agent. We exceed the average age of podcasters. So, since we're on that end of the spectrum, this is more important to us. Thanks for listening. Hopefully you learned something. As we conclude this episode, we hope that it inspires you to start making those decisions. If you're not where you plan on being ultimately, what do you need to do to get there? What are those things you're going to need? And hey, if you're already there and you haven't leaned on your real estate agent, lean on us. Let us help do some of the work and introduce you to our neighborhood where we've been plugged in for 20, 30 years. Reminder, we are both full-time real estate agents with Keller Williams. Donna's with Southern Arizona in Tucson. I'm with Heritage in San Antonio, Texas, and the Texas Hill Country. We can help you in our own specific territories. And if you need somebody around the world or around the United States, we can connect you there as well through our extensive network of agents as being part of the largest global brokerage. Remember, it may be simple, ain't always easy. I'm Eric.
I'm Donna.
And we are
Real
Siblings. And we old.
Real old siblings.